you. I'd like to share with you the secret of the world's greatest performance enhancer. And no, it's not what you think it is. But before I do that, I'd like to tell you a story of a woman I was working with recently. Lydia came to work with me because she realized that she needed to show up at a huge international medical conference with more confidence, more credibility, and with greater gravitas. So I asked Lydia a question that I ask all my clients. And I asked her, how would she rate her voice between 1 and 10? 1 being, God, I hate my voice, I can't bear hearing it played back, and there's nothing good I could say about it. And I hear a lot of that. And the second, when we get to 10, we're talking about somebody who thinks there is no issue with their voice at all, and their whole response is, why would you be asking me this in the first place? And the second question I asked her was, how would you describe your voice? Now, that's a little bit more difficult. But before I tell you what she said, I'd like you to turn to each other very quickly in a moment, and I want you to think about that number that came into your head, 1 to 10, what was it, and how would you describe your voice to the person sitting next to you or closest to you, and the person with the shortest hair goes first. This is really quick. Yeah, really quick. Okay, I'm hearing some interesting answers over here. Okay, let's come back. Don't want you overthinking this. Okay, back we come. Now, okay, so who got amazing? I'm just loving it. Anyone? Anyone get passionate, engaging, exciting? Yeah, anyone out there that we got this with? Anyone got, it's okay. Come on, we have to have some okay voices out here, don't we? Brilliant, wonderful. Anyone get boring? I can hear that laugh, yeah, absolutely. Monotone, lots of monotone, I can see out there, heads nodding. Anyone get too high? Yeah, lots of that I'm hearing. Too squeaky, too fast. Yeah. And this is the sort of thing that we hear all the time. Well, before I tell you what Lydia said, I think we have to just acknowledge that these are issues we have all the time, that we don't rate our voices highly enough. But when I asked Lydia what she thought of her voice, she said 2 things. She said, my voice is boring and it's too girly. So I asked her, in an ideal world, how would you like to have described your voice? And she said, her eyes lit up, and she said, I'd like my voice to be spellbinding. Now, wouldn't we all? So, Lydia said that part of her problem was that in meetings she felt she wasn't heard. And I would suggest that if we don't think our voice is being heard in meetings, then we are likely to think that our voice is boring. There isn't a day goes by without a female client revealing to me that she feels that she's not heard in meetings. Women say that they're talked over, they're interrupted, but worse than any of this, the thing that really gets them, and I'm sure you'll be able to identify with this, is they say that when they say something, it's often repeated, and often repeated by a male colleague. Yeah, definite nose of approval here on this one, yeah, or affirmation. So what happens is that, you lose all your confidence when that happens. But what that also does, and it makes us very angry, and it makes us very frustrated. So how can we take our voice back? Because our voices are taken away from us in all sorts of different ways. When I was a little girl, I grew up in an era when I was told little girls are seen and not heard. Anyone unfortunate? Yeah, we're seeing some hands go up here. The other thing that happens is that there is an unconscious bias towards men, towards boys, when they're being educated with girls, and we're still seeing some of that. And not that long ago, actually only 6 short years ago, I left a very abusive relationship. I finally had the confidence to leave. And the parting shot of that person to me was, so you're going back to London. Who do you think's going to employ you at your age? Well, I had all the good answers in my head, of course. You always do have, and particularly after the fact. But, here I am. And I can tell you, if my voice can be heard at my age, yours can definitely be heard at yours. So, what can we do to take our voices back? Well, what I'd like to encourage you to be is to be yourself more and with skill. So, how does that untangle? Be yourself more. It's not about shrinking, it's not about playing less. We see too much of that with women. It is about owning your voice. What happens is there are 3 things that we do when we're under stress. We contract, so what happens for women is they typically talk with their legs really close together. They speak and they do this. Once your legs are close together, you get these sort of mermaid flippy gestures that go on. Mm-hmm. Not the best way to be heard, is it, here? Because if your legs are together and you try to put your hands out here to do any gesture, even if it's just here, and you've got killer heels on, you are likely to wobble and fall over, or at least lose your balance. So we get this. The second thing that we get is we get a lot of what I call the Princess Di look. The eyes go down to the floor, and this is what's happening here. It's not a very good look. The voice fades away, and you're not taking any space. Or we get the sort of semi-Miss World position. We get this sort of here that goes on. Again, not your best look, really, in business. Not to be encouraged. So, be yourself. Because, as Oscar Wilde said, be yourself because everyone else is taken. It's about being the authentic you. And there are lots of us. There's the me that's slobbing away at home. There's the me that's in front of you now. There's the me that's with my kids. There's lots of us, but we have to be authentically us. Now, the second thing that we do when we're under stress is we contract our breath as well. So what we do is we tighten our knees under stress, we clamp the abs in your bum, and the breath goes right up here. So once the breaths come up here, you're going to get a really high voice that goes on up here, and it's going to quite fast as well, and you'll run out of breath very quickly. And then you've got to take a big breath in order to carry on. And it's a bit like being a rat or a hamster on a wheel. So this is what's going on here. And the third thing that we do is we tunnel vision. So it's like me coming in here and only looking at this part of the audience here, ignoring all these lovely people up in the peanut gallery up here, and ignoring people further back. I have to have my peripheral vision open. So what we need to do to get that peripheral vision open, and this is the dead easy bit of it, you want to get your arms, get your feet a hip width apart when you get home, get your hands out to the side, look just above eye level, wiggle your fingers, and if you can see your fingers in your peripheral vision, no cheating, but you can see it here, your eyes are open. It's like the lights are off, the lights are on. The lights are off, the lights are on. I'm here, I'm present. But the big thing that we need to do is to be able to get the breath to support the voice. So you're not running out of breath, you're not fading away at the end of a line. And nobody's listening to what you're saying after a short while because we just can't be bothered to do it. It's too much effort, I'll go off into my head on something else. So how do we get the breath down here? Just really quickly, we need to get our feet a hip width apart. Get your knees to be really soft. I don't mean so you look like you're going to the loo, or you've just come back from a skiing holiday, but you just got, your knees are relaxed. Because when that happens, your diaphragm, which sits here at rest, is able to drop down and move down towards the belly. And your ribs expand, and you've got a whole load more breath. So here's a really, really simple exercise. If you put your fingertips on your belly, if at the moment you all just sit on your sit bones, so sit on your bum cheeks, and I'll pretend I'm sitting on my bum cheeks here. So fingertips at your navel, and take your other hand, just the knuckles, and on the widest part of your ribs, the bit that sort of bellow in and out here. And all I want you to do is just exhale. Just blow that air out. Brilliant. And let the breath drop back into where your fingers are. And exhale again. And thank you. And if you want to take that any further, you can go into that sort of sumo wrestler squat down here, okay? You could even do the haka down here if you really want to, down here. But you can have this really good breath. When we're working with actors, we teach them to breathe down into the groin, down into the belly, down into the groin. Of course, you can't literally breathe down there, but it's this feeling of power, of resonance, of being able to send your voice wherever you want it to be. It's about filling the space with your breath. That's the important thing. Breathe the space. When you breathe the space, you're confident, particularly when you get your posture correct. And then you'll have the resources to drive what you're saying through to the end of the sentence and to stop people interrupting what you're saying and reframing it as their own information when you lose control of what's happening. Now, there are two other things that women do. There are two particular things that women do which absolutely ensure you won't be heard in the boardroom, at a senior management meeting, or frankly, anywhere else. And the two things are called vocal fry. Have we all heard this? You know, it's this very way where you're depressing the voice down as far as it can go. So you're operating on very little breath down here. It's like me saying, "Hi, everyone. My name's Sheelagh, and I'm a senior tutor at RADA." It's that sort of thing. So it's really, really down here. It was popularized by the Kardashian sisters. Now, if that doesn't put you off in business, I really don't know what will. So vocal fry, you've got very little breath. You've pushed right down here. And you may think that you sound sexy down here and too cool for school, but it ain't a good voice in the workplace. And I can tell you there's research from Duke University in 2014 that says that interviewers perceive women who use vocal fry as less authoritative, less well-educated, and less hireable. So your vocal affectation could be costing you your next job, or even that promotion. Now, the second thing, and we hear a lot of this around, don't we, these days? Again, it tends to be something that affects more women under 35 rather than over 35, as does vocal fry. We hear a lot of what I call HRT. Again, if that doesn't put you off, I really don't know what will. So HRT is just shorthand for high rising terminals. And it means that the last word in every phrase and every sentence that you use, when it's not a question, goes up like this, and you end up sounding tentative and unsure of yourself and needy and needing approval and needing what else? I don't know. Because nobody is going to listen to you if you have these vocal, and they are affectations. It's not something you're born with. Vocal fry may be if you've got vocal pathology, but that is very, very rare. I don't think that's likely to be happening in this audience here. So these are two things that we really need to guard against. They will stop you being promoted. They will stop you being taken seriously. But I promised you when I came in that I would share with you the secret of the world's greatest performance enhancer, didn't I? And I'm afraid to say it's not the contents of the bottle. Sadly, it is the humble cork. So, who's up for having their performance enhanced? Yay! Absolutely. So if you dip down into your bags, you've got little yellow bags down by your side, if you could very quickly pull out your own performance enhancer, I'll show you what we do with it. It is, after all, a very little thing to make a massive difference. Okay, everybody got their cork? Yes? Lovely. Here we go. So, in a moment, we're going to use this cork so that you will never mumble again. Your diction will be brilliant. Yeah? We will be able to hear you because in a moment you're going to put this cork in your mouth. Don't do it yet because your gag reflex will be dreadful if you put it in right now. You're going to put it into your mouth by about a centimetre. So about this much for those of us who didn't actually grow up with centimetres. And we're going to pop it in our mouths, and all together we're going to speak a nursery rhyme that I think everybody will know. And actually it was referred to by another speaker earlier on. It's Humpty Dumpty. Does everybody know Humpty Dumpty? Way, brilliant. So it goes, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Brilliant, you passed that one with flying colours. Now, how does it sound when you put the cork in your mouth? So, when we put the cork in the mouth, what happens is you exercise the tongue tip, and that's needed for fine precision for diction. The sides of your tongue, as I said, once the cork's in your mouth is held open, and so you can get more volume. Now, I want you to enjoy Humpty Dumpty. Imagine you're doing it with your 2-year-old. Or maybe you don't want to imagine a cork in a 2-year-old's mouth. So all together, we're going to put this in our mouths, right? And Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Brilliant. Now, hold on. Thank you for that. But hold on a second for the pièce de résistance. Now, I'd like you to speak the first few lines of Humpty Dumpty, and I'd like you to feel what this feels like in your mouth. And we'll talk about that in a second. Maybe we'll just do 2 more lines of Humpty Dumpty, take it out, and then all together we'll do the first 2 lines again. So, off we go. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Yes. So what could you feel? What could you hear? More open, yeah. So what happens is you should feel that the mouth is more open, your diction is clearer, and we've only done it for a very, very short while here. So what you do is you take the cork home with you, your RADA cork home with you, and you speak for 2 minutes a day. And I can guarantee, this is an absolute guarantee, if you practice with the cork in your mouth for 2 minutes a day for a month, your diction will be clearer, your articulation will be great, your volume, if you need more volume, will be better. And I can also guarantee that vocal fry and HRT will be a thing of the past. So, I'd like to give you just a very, very quick update on Lydia. Lydia went and she practiced diligently. We worked together for some time, and she went to that medical conference in Malmo, and she went to present her paper to a huge international audience. And at the end of it, she got feedback from that audience, and the feedback was, what do you guess it was? That she was spellbinding. Thank you. Thank you.